rehabilitated, and real entertaining. This is the Carl Jackson Podcast.
Hello and welcome to Monday's edition of the Carl Jackson Show podcast. This is your daily dose of objective truth in a world of confusion and lies. The left is making a spectacle out of the film Sound of Freedom that stars Jim Caviezel, and I have several reasons as to why I believe that is that I want to get into. One of those reasons is the left hates conservatives more than child exploitation, but there's a bigger reason, or actually several reasons at play, that the left can no longer talk about or champion anti-human trafficking movements. I'm going to be talking about that next on this edition of the Carl Jackson Show podcast. Stay tuned for some quick program messaging, and we'll be right back. All right, welcome back to the Carl Jackson Show podcast. Please subscribe to the podcast wherever you go to get your podcast. That's Apple, Google, Spotify, YouTube, and Rumble. If you go to YouTube and Rumble, please rate and review us. Click on the subscribe button. Give us a 5, please. That'll help us move up the charts, if you will, on all things social media at The Carl Jackson Show. We're on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Truth Social, and Getter, so you can find us there. Today's show is brought to you by MyPillow.com. Mike Lindell is an amazing American, providing American jobs, American manufacturing, and a good night's rest for those of you who want it, and I know you guys want it. Listen, My Pillow 2.0 is out. And the original My Pillow everyone loved, but this one is even better. The new My Pillow 2.0 comes with a patented temperature regulating thread that makes it softer, smoother, and even cooler to sleep on. It still has the adjustable patented feel, though, so you don't have to worry about that. It's the outer layer that's also made in America that gives you an even better night's sleep. Plus, for my listeners, an exclusive offer: buy one, get one free. That's right. Buy one, get one free. All you have to do is go to mypillow.com, click on the radio listener square at the top of the page, and enter my name, Carl, C-A-R-L, or give them a call at 800-858-0263. Guys, we don't make enough stuff in the United States of America anymore, in my opinion. So help out the company, MyPillow, and help yourself out by getting a better night's rest. MyPillow.com. Enter the promo code Carl, or give them a call, 800-858-0263. Also, this is summer traveling season for a lot of families. They got traveling pillows. They've got deals up to over 60% off if you use my name. All right, so I want to get into this movie, The Sound of Freedom. And I'll be honest with you, I haven't seen the film yet. I'm looking forward to seeing the film. I've heard great things about the film. My wife has seen the film, absolutely loved it. But there was a column on the Federalist that I want to talk about briefly here, but I also want to give you my reasons as to why the left can't stand this film already, The Sound of Freedom. As a matter of fact, they're calling it, people that watch it, people that buy into this stuff, QAnon, conspiracy theorists. Why would the left do that? I'll tell you why I believe the main reason the left will do it, but I've got a plethora of reasons that I want to mention as well. I do want to get to some news today, however, first, so we'll get into my reasoning shortly. But lots of news that broke today. Bud Light has slid out of the top 10. Now it's in 15th place, and as far as popularity is concerned, you're seeing ads of all the people that are affected by Bud Light, the drivers, distributors, so on, etc., that Bud Light is doing an ad for now. Their woke executives should have thought about that beforehand, before hiring Dylan Mulvaney and running away from their base, running away from their clientele, and telling their clientele, we're basically going in a new direction. You're going to accept this and continue to drink our beer. Well, it's not happening for them. A story that's related, I'll get into how the New York Times is writing how the Bidens are callously scarring Navy's life, Navy being their grandchild, their 7th grandchild, that they are ignoring. This will play a part of this today's podcast. That story is very important. And I think part of it, frankly, the part of the story is that the New York Times even cares and is reporting it, which tells you they are bothered by the Biden administration. Miss Netherlands is a dude. Yep, you heard that right. Also, Biden is catching heat from both sides, on all sides, from this report that he's going to be sending cluster bombs to Ukraine. Those cluster bombs um, are noted to be able to literally, I mean, obviously do lots of damage, but they can explode later. They can kill innocent civilians. This is something that the Biden administration said before. They've been banned in more than 100 countries. And the White House suggested last year that Russia's use of the weapons in Ukraine was a potential war crime. But here we are sending them. So it's a little disconcerting. Janet Yellen meets with the Chinese officials to try improving tensions. She does nothing of the sort. Listen, the left isn't taking Biden seriously, the Biden administration, and they aren't going to take Janet Yellen seriously. Why should they? Why should they? She bowed down. She's getting a lot of flack for bowing down to the Chinese government, but that's essentially what we're doing. Actually, I would say we're bending over, because that's essentially what we have to do with Joe Biden in charge. This from the AP. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen on Sunday says she agreed Washington will listen to Chinese complaints about secretary-related curbs on U.S. technology exports and might, quote, respond to unintended consequences, close quote, as she ended a visit to Beijing aimed at reviving strained relations. Yellen defended, quote unquote, targeted measures on trade that China's leaders complain are aimed at hurting its fledgling tech industries. She said the Biden administration wants to, quote, avoid unnecessary repercussions, close quote, but disputes about, but gave no indication of possible changes. Relations between the two biggest economies are at their lowest level in decades due to disputes about technology, security, and other irritants. A key Chinese complaint is limits on access to processor chips and other U.S. technology on security grounds that threaten to hamper the ruling Communist Party's development of smartphones, artificial intelligence, and other industries. Yeah, we shouldn't be working with China to help them build their surveillance state and build an economy and surveil us, given the fact that they're going to be moving troops over to Cuba, if they haven't started that already, building a military base there to house troops. That's absolutely insane. And they are surveilling us already from places as close as Cuba. Absolutely insane. But another wasted trip by the Biden administration. And then again, Janet Yellen ends by bowing down to one of the communist leaders there. Absolutely insane. But that's essentially what we're doing. And that's what people understand. This is... all right, the left is upset with AOC for endorsing Biden for 2024, but it's something that she has to do right now and play the game. Biden and his war stuff, and obviously they're saying, listen, this chick isn't progressive enough, or Biden, I'm sorry, isn't progressive enough. So a lot going on here. Man, there's so much news. It's not even funny. Grassley says IRS left out a briefing on alleged bribery scheme. So the IRS left out of a briefing. House Judiciary panel to grill FBI's raid over politicization of agency. The U.S. economy, big banks post rise in loan losses. More people are walking away as commercial real estate struggles. Soft corporate earnings season poses next test for market rally. The middle class is getting poorer during the Biden administration. All of this stuff, man, it's absolutely insane what's happening under the Biden administration, but it is happening. So the world is going topsy-turvy. All right, that was a lot. I didn't intend to go into the news that much. There's just so many headlines. It's insane. Like, I do show prep. I'm in for Officer Tatum this week. I do show prep, literally finished the show prep. And within 30 minutes, I could do a whole nother, show. But let me get to this issue at hand, because I think this is very important, because it's illustrative of who the Biden administration is. It's illustrative of who the left is and what they will do for the sake of power, even if it means abandoning the anti-child exploitation movement, if you will, something that all Americans at one point in time agreed with. So here's the summary from the Federalist. Or here's a title: Corrupt media care more about QAnon than human trafficking. So here's the summary. So Angel Studios came out with this film, The Sound of Freedom, which stars Jim Caviezel. It adapts the true story of the government agent turned vigilante who works with legal means to fight an international child sex trafficking ring. All right. And it's receiving great commercial success and critical acclaim. You guys might not know this, but so far that independent film has made $40 million this weekend. It made $40 million. Let me make sure I got that correct. Yep. Expected to hit $40 million after its first weekend. This is absolutely phenomenal. The mainstream media does not want to give it credit. The article goes on to say, briefly outperforming the latest pile of Disney slop, Sound of Freedom is a well-produced and well-acted film that effectively blends both action and suspense while pushing one of the modern world's most significant yet under-discussed issues to the forefront of public discourse. This issue is of the multi-billion-dollar global human trafficking industry. The point of the movie, as expressed by Jim Caviezel, the star, is in a heartfelt mid-credits call to action, is to wake people up about the horrors that are all too real and overlooked about the exploitation of children in the contemporary sex trade. And so why would the left call us QAnon conspiracy theorists for wanting to wanting to watch and share, and people like Caviezel and Tim Ballard who Jim Caviezel portrays? Why are they QAnon conspiracy theorists? I'll get to that in just a sec. It has a lot. It's disgusting. Honestly, the Democrat Party is disgusting. That's not to say that the Republican Party are saints. I'm just telling you, I want you to understand how evil the Democrat Party and the left wingers that run it are. You would think that the mainstream media and the left would be happy to celebrate a film that exposes the tragedy and the horrors of child exploitation. We all used to agree with that, regardless of party affiliation. You didn't have to be a person of religious faith even to agree with an atheist that this is wrong, this is sick, this shouldn't happen. But here's what the left is saying, or here's what the left thinks of the film. Who is this from? So Leftwing Media took the opportunity to bash the film, saying The Sound of Freedom as a superhero movie for dads with brainworms and trafficking fantasy fit for QAnon. So that's what the mainstream media is saying about this. The Sound of Freedom is fit basically, or is a movie that is a superhero movie for dads with brain worms. That's amazing, isn't it? For dads with brainworms, and a trafficking fantasy fit for QAnon. Rolling Stone placed a comedic focus on their assault against the film. They said that it's a near total absence of procedural logic, quote unquote, and the film's embellishment of real life events. It's a movie after all. They say, Tim Ballard with Jim Caviezel and Tim Ballard and their conservative leanings and stuff like that, the impassioned anti-human trafficking activism and the possibility that they may believe in the QAnon conspiracy theory. So that's what Rolling Stones believes. They must believe in the Rolling Stone or the QAnon conspiracy theory in order to make the film. Jim Caviezel and Tim Ballard. Rolling Stone also believes the film enforced stereotypes about trafficking, quote unquote. How do you enforce stereotypes about trafficking? Why would you even use that terminology? Why would you even use those words? Enforce stereotyping about trafficking? What type of there can't be enough stereotyping about trafficking. It's evil. It's nasty. It's cruel. You're destroying lives. Children are abused. What stereotype? Man. They downplayed the reality of the international human trafficking trade by suggesting this is Rolling Stone still. Thousands of adults will absorb Sound of Freedom, quote unquote, as a, quote, vigilante fever dream, and that wanting to spread the word about the reality of this international trade is profoundly depressing. What? That's Rolling Stone. That's why I hope they go bankrupt completely. Out of business. Jezebel amplified the same stuff, basically saying that Caviezel's anti-human trafficking activism is being used to peddle QAnon theories. The Washington Post similarly set the film's message because of past statements made by Caviezel regarding adrenochrome, quote unquote, in Ballard's work insufficiently passing the leftist ideological smell test, they also believe that the film caters to politically incorrect orthodoxy or something to that effect. It's insane. It's insane. It's crazy. I can't believe what I'm reading here. So left-wing media basically would rather hate on conservatives than to expose the horrors that children go through with child exploitation. That's basically a summary of this article. Oh, I got to get to this. I'm going to do a separate podcast on that. Did you know tap water might be killing you? We'll do a podcast on that this week. It's absolutely insane. More stories are popping up about these forever chemicals. So we'll talk about that later in the week. But now let me give you some of the reasons why the left wants to ignore this film, why they really want to ignore this film. One, the open borders crisis. Biden's open border crisis that the mainstream media, whether it's Rolling Stone, Jezebel, whether it's Washington Post, whether it's MSNBC, whether it's CNN, that they continue to ignore. Because of those open borders, you have these sex traffickers that are making a buttload of money, as well as drug traffickers that are the Mexican cartel, so on, et cetera, that are making a buttload of money. So why would the left want to talk about or talk up this film? Because they don't want to bring attention to the horrors that the Biden administration are growing exponentially because of our open border crisis. That's one. Another issue is when it comes to children, you have to consider this. The Biden administration are absolutely disgusting people. The Biden family, I should say. And it goes well beyond their corruption. Just think of the type of people they must be to still be covering up the fact that, well, in my opinion, I think it's a fact that either Hunter or Joe Biden were sniffing cocaine in the White House, most likely Hunter. I think everybody knows that for the most part. But let me go back to this story. Remember, I told you I would bring you back to Navy, which is the seventh grandchild of the Biden administration. How cruel do you have to be to ignore your granddaughter? Think about that. You think a guy that doesn't care for his own granddaughter actually cares about his voters? Absolutely, he does not. This from the New York Times. President Joe Biden and First Lady Jill Biden have acted shamelessly when it comes to their seventh grandchild, as they don't even acknowledge Hunter Biden's 4-year-old daughter. Time after time, the couple has bragged about their 6 grandchildren, quote unquote. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre, just this past Wednesday, a press briefing, refused to speak to the issue. Joe Biden, New York Times, Joe Biden's mantra has always been that this is the New York Times. That was actually from Town Hall. Joe Biden's mantra has always been that, quote, the absolute most important thing is your family, close quote. It is the heart of his political narrative. Empathy, born of family tragedies, has been his stock in trade. Callously scarring Navy's life just as it gets started undercuts that. You don't think, New York Times. It's funny how the New York Times is starting to bash Joe Biden, huh? Maybe an insurance card just in case they need to go all in case the guy's completely brain dead. You may have saw this weekend that he was chilling on the beach shirtless as Janet Yellen was trying to ease tensions with China, which absolutely did not work because China wants to eat our lunch and China wants to be numero uno. And they know with Joe Biden they can do absolutely that. But just consider this. That's another reason they don't want to talk about the sound, the sound of freedom, in my opinion, because they would also have to talk about, man, this family, they just don't seem to care about. They don't seem to care about Hunter Biden and his love child and so on, et cetera. All of this stuff comes full circle. They don't want to have to talk about that. Another thing that I suspect the Biden administration doesn't want to have to talk about is Jeffrey Epstein and the pervert globalists, and perhaps the people that Joe Biden is working with within the UN. This is another podcast I'll do this week, within the UN, to kind of change our health emergency standards in the United States of America. But the left doesn't want to talk about Jeffrey Epstein. Why doesn't the left want to talk about Jeffrey Epstein? Because I suspect that there are big donors and globalists that collude with the Democrat Party that are perverts, that are pedophiles. They don't want to talk about this stuff. This stuff is normal. See, this is the sad truth. We used to be a place, the United States of America, that stood up for goodness, that stood up for righteousness. We don't do that, especially with the Biden administration. Sadly, our government doesn't seem to do that anymore, or care about that type of stuff, especially with the Biden administration and all of these globalists that he wants to work with, these communists, these socialists. They don't think anything of human sex trafficking and child sex trafficking. That's what they do. That's how they roll. That's how they roll. This isn't anything to be, talking about. This isn't a moral outrage for these people. These are sick, perverted people. So Jeffrey Epstein and all the people associated with him, I have a strong suspicion that they're probably Democrat donors. People like Bill Gates, something. Just a sneaky suspicion on my part. Another thing that you have to consider why the left hates this film, and I think this is the number one reason why I believe the Democrat Party is speaking out against this film in a negative way in the mainstream media. It's because just think about this. Pedophiles, listen to me. Pedophiles are now a part of the Democratic base, are now a part of the Democratic voting base. What do you think this trans movement is ushering in? LGBTQ radical activists, with men parading butt naked in pride parades, with their genitals just swinging all over the place, with children out there. I mean, this is the Democratic base. These people are activists, disgusting people. I'm not saying everybody in the lesbian and gay community, but certainly a lot of these people that participate in these pride events that say nothing about grown behind men, with their penises out, with children there. It's absolutely gross. But these are activists within the Democrat base. Very small amount of people with big voices. And I guarantee you, they fund the Democrat Party by and large. They fund them. They'll send their money in, their donations in. There's wealthy people that are part of this movement, part of the trans movement. They got a lot of this stuff started. It's a way of sowing chaos. It's a way of changing truth, or redefining truth. This movement, trans movement, men can be women, women can be men. The left wants all of this stuff because it's chaos, and they want the government to ultimately be able to tell you what truth is. But just to put it simply, a large part of the Democratic base now, I believe, are pedophiles. I believe they're pedophiles. So they don't want to talk about this stuff. The MSNBC, CNN, they talk about this stuff. Wait a minute, we're going against some of our base. LGBTQ activists, they want to be able to bash Republicans on the head and say that we're anti-LGBTQ. So they're not going to call out this. They're not going to encourage people to go out and see The Sound of Freedom. It's absolutely disgusting. But that's exactly where we are. So open borders crisis is why they won't talk about this. Biden's ignoring of his own grandchild. How can this guy can't be sympathetic to children's plight when he doesn't even care about hurting his own grandchild, can he? Jeffrey Epstein and the pervert globalists, right? That are probably donors to the Democrat Party. And the fourth reason, pedophiles are part of the the Democrat Party's base. It's as simple as that. This is why the left hates the sound of freedom. All right, guys, I appreciate you tuning in to this edition of the Carl Jackson Show podcast. Please remember to subscribe to the podcast wherever you go to get your podcast. All right, Apple, Google, Spotify, YouTube, and Rumble. Subscribe. Follow me on all things social media at The Carl Jackson Show. And until next time, don't grow weary doing good. God bless you.